I never envisioned myself becoming that individual who settled, you know? But here I am, Clara, 32, and frankly, in retrospect, I should have anticipated it. We all possess that subtle inner voice signaling when something is amiss. Yet sometimes we become so ensnared by the mere idea of being with someone, anyone, that we consciously disregard all the warning signs. When I initially encountered Nolan, he wasn't precisely what I had envisioned. I had just navigated a tumultuous breakup with Chad, the undeniably attractive investment professional who, yes, exhibited some commitment issues, but at least he possessed an exciting aura. Nolan was safe, reliable, the kind of man my mother would adore, which, in hindsight, should have been my primary indicator of trouble. He pursued me relentlessly, constantly texting, meticulously planning thoughtful dates, recalling minute details I had mentioned once, almost desperate, I now realize. Between us, I had reached that juncture where all my friends were either becoming engaged or marrying. My biological clock wasn't merely ticking, it was practically screaming. So, when Nolan proposed after only 10 months, I consented. I mean, he wasn't unattractive, held a stable profession, and seemed absolutely infatuated with me. Furthermore, he originated from a respectable family and possessed a genuinely pleasant apartment. I reasoned I could do worse, right? My best friend Rachel, however, saw straight through it. "Clara, do you genuinely love him, or merely the idea of being married?" she inquired at my bachelorette party after I'd consumed a few too many drinks and was effusively reminiscing about my ex, Ryan, as the one that got away. I brushed off her query, but deep down I knew she had a valid point. The wedding was exquisite, I ensured that. I dedicated months to meticulously planning every detail, and Nolan simply nodded and smiled while writing checks. That's one thing I'll concede to him: he has never been parsimonious with me. Our honeymoon in the Bahamas was precisely what I desired, and upon our return, he surprised me with a new car. Nothing overly extravagant, but still, it was brand new and exclusively mine. Life then settled into a predictable routine. Nolan departs for his office job, returns home, inquires about my day at the firm where I manage client accounts. He patiently listens to my complaints about my colleagues, particularly that witch Vanessa, who consistently attempts to claim credit for my work. He prepares dinner most evenings because, honestly, I'm usually too fatigued. Subsequently, we watch whatever television program I'm currently absorbed in before bedtime, rinse and repeat. It's comfortable, safe, predictable, and it's slowly eroding my spirit. Don't misinterpret me, Nolan is a fundamentally good person, genuinely good in that bland way. He remembers anniversaries without prompts. He handles all the bills and tedious adult responsibilities. He never complains when I go out with my friends or overspend on shoes. He even gets along with my parents, which is more than I can say for any of my former partners. But there's no spark, you know? I sometimes observe him performing utterly mundane actions like brushing his teeth or checking his emails, and I inwardly wonder, is this truly it? Is this what I irrevocably committed to? Meanwhile, I see Rachel and my other friends posting captivating photographs with their partners, romantic getaways, exquisite restaurants, thoughtful presents, while Nolan's concept of romance extends only to ordering my favorite takeout. That's when Tucker started at our firm. Tall, confident, with a smile that makes you feel like you're the sole individual in the room. He understands my jokes, challenges me intellectually, and actually possesses engaging perspectives on the world. We commenced having lunch together, then coffee breaks, then after-work drinks with the team, though by the end of the evening, it was predominantly just the two of us. Nothing physical has transpired between us. I am not an adulteress, but I would be dishonest if I denied having contemplated it. Tucker makes me feel alive in a way Nolan never has. He comprehends my ambition, my aspirations beyond merely being someone's wife. When I am with Tucker, I recall the girl I once was, the one who harbored grand plans, who yearned to travel and experience life before settling down, the girl who desired a partner, not merely a provider. The most agonizing aspect? I look at Nolan, who fulfills every criterion flawlessly on paper, and I feel nothing. Well, nothing save for a profound resentment that I could have performed so much better, that I compromised for stability instead of passion, that I am trapped in this life I'm not even certain I desired, while he gets to be with someone profoundly out of his league. I recognize how that sounds, but it truly reflects my sentiments. Every time I witness a couple genuinely in love, like authentically unable to keep their hands off each other, a knot forms in my stomach, because I know that is not us. It never truly was and likely never will be. Rachel telephoned me last week, frantic about her boyfriend Jake. They've been together for approximately a year, and he's starting to broach the topic of cohabitation. "I don't know," she repeatedly voiced. "He's wonderful, but something feels off." Is that normal? Did you experience that with Nolan? If only she knew. When Rachel called yesterday, I was in the bathroom styling my hair. Nolan was supposedly at work until late, immersed in some project that had stressed him throughout the week. Rachel continued to elaborate on Jake and the long-term potential of their relationship. "Look, Rachel, listen intently," I interjected, leaning closer to the mirror to refine my mascara. "Remember what I consistently advise you. Don't settle for just anyone. That was the grave error I committed." Rachel remained silent on the other end. "Seriously," I continued, becoming increasingly agitated as I reflected on my own circumstances. Who knows who else I could have had? Nolan was my absolute last resort, and now look at the predicament it has led me to. I proceeded, articulating all my marital frustrations. How Nolan defrays all expenses but lacks any ambition beyond his comfortable office job. How he's so fixated on me but utterly clueless about my true identity. How I sometimes lie awake at night wondering what life would have been like had I simply waited for someone superior. "You deserve passion," I informed Rachel. "You deserve someone who challenges you and excites you, not merely provides for you." After I concluded the call, I finished preparing and headed to the living room to watch some television before Nolan's return. I must have dozed off because the next thing I perceived was Nolan standing in the doorway, regarding me with a peculiar expression. Not angry, precisely, but empty, as if something behind his eyes had abruptly extinguished. "Hey," I said, stretching. "You're home early. How was work?" "Fine," he stated, his voice devoid of inflection. He remained stationary in the doorway. "Everything okay?" I inquired, a sudden sense of unease washing over me. Nolan is usually so predictable. He enters, kisses me on the cheek, asks about my day, begins preparing dinner. This silent, statue-like version was unprecedented. "Just tired," he muttered finally, then bypassed me, walking directly to the bedroom without another word. The ensuing days were peculiar. Nolan was quiet, distant. He ceased inquiring about my day. Stopped preparing dinner. Stopped sleeping in our bed, claiming he didn't wish to disturb me when he had to rise early. I surmised he was stressed about work or something, but when I probed, he merely shrugged and asserted everything was fine. Men, right? They perpetually claim things are fine when they're patently not, then expect us to intuit their thoughts. I decided to grant him space to navigate whatever man problem he was experiencing. Meanwhile, I spent more time at the office, where at least Tucker appreciated my company. By the weekend, however, I'd had enough of the silent treatment. Nolan was seated at the kitchen table, staring into his coffee as if it contained the secrets of the cosmos, when I finally confronted him. "Okay, what is going on with you?" I demanded. "You've been behaving strangely all week." Nolan looked up at me, and something in his expression made my stomach plummet. It wasn't anger or sadness, it was like recognition, as if he was perceiving me clearly for the very first time. "We should sit down and talk," he said quietly. "We are sitting," I pointed out, attempting levity. He didn't smile. "Clara, I was home early on Tuesday. I overheard your phone call with Rachel." The blood drained from my face. Tuesday. The bathroom. Rachel. "Oh no, what are you talking about?" I stammered, frantically buying time as my mind raced. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," Nolan stated, his voice eerily calm. "I overheard you tell Rachel not to settle like you did. That I was your last resort, that you're unhappy with where you ended up." I opened my mouth to deny it, then closed it again. How much had he heard? What could I possibly say to salvage this? "It's not what you think," I tried, reaching for his hand across the table. He recoiled before I could touch him. "I was just joking with Rachel. You know how we are, always being dramatic about everything." "Don't." His voice was sharp now. "Don't lie to me on top of everything else." "I'm not lying," I protested, forcing tears to my eyes. They had always worked on Nolan before. "I love you. You know I love you." "Do I?" he asked, looking directly at me. "Because from what I heard, you settled for me. You think you could have done better?" "You're taking it all out of context," I insisted, the tears now flowing freely. I was just having a bad day, venting. You know, I didn't mean any of it. Nolan remained silent for a long moment, simply observing me with those eyes that seemed to perceive everything. I've been contemplating this all week, he finally said, going over our entire relationship in my head. And you know what? It makes sense. The way you never seem that excited to see me, the way you compare me to your exes, the way you're always on your phone when we're together. That's not fair, I countered, switching tactics. If you had a problem with me, you should have said something instead of spying on my private conversations. I wasn't spying, he said calmly. I came home early to surprise you because I got that promotion I've been working toward. I was going to take you out to celebrate. The promotion, the one he'd been stressing about for months, the one that would mean more money, more security for us. For me. Well, congratulations, I said weakly. Clara, Nolan said, ignoring my attempt at a diversion, I don't think this marriage was the right decision for either of us. My heart began to pound. Was he truly going there? Over one stupid conversation? You don't mean that, I said, reaching for his hand again. This time he allowed me to take it, but his fingers remained limp in mine. We can work through this. I'll do better. We can go to counseling or something. It's not about doing better, he said, gently pulling his hand away. It's about the fact that you don't love me. Maybe you never did, and I deserve someone who does. I do love you, I insisted, panic rising in my chest. This couldn't be happening. What would I do? Where would I go? No, Nolan said, standing up. You don't, and I think we both know that. Something inside me snapped. All the fear and guilt instantly transformed into rage. Who was he to judge me? To throw away everything I'd built over one moment of weakness? Fine, I shouted, standing up so quickly my chair toppled backward. You want the truth? Yes, I settled for you. I could have had anyone, but I chose you. And this is how you repay me? By throwing a tantrum the minute things get hard? Nolan didn't flinch, didn't raise his voice to match mine. He just looked at me with a mixture of sadness and, was that pity? You think you can find someone better than me? I continued, unable to stop myself now. Good luck with that. You're nothing special, Nolan. I was the best thing that ever happened to you, and you're throwing it all away. I'm not throwing anything away, he said quietly. I'm just finally seeing what was never really there. Forget you, I screamed, grabbing my purse from the counter. I'm leaving. When I come back, you better have figured out how stupid you're being. I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. In the car, I called Rachel, crying so hard I could barely articulate the words. Nolan and I had a huge fight, I sobbed. He overheard me talking to you the other day. Can I stay with you for a bit? Rachel was quiet for a moment. Of course, she finally said, though something in her voice sounded off. You know you're always welcome. I spent the weekend at Rachel's waiting for Nolan to call or text, begging me to come home. He didn't. Rachel was strangely distant too, asking probing questions about what exactly Nolan had overheard and seeming less sympathetic than usual. By Sunday night, I was starting to worry. Maybe you should call him, Rachel suggested, as we sat on her couch with wine. Clear the air. Why should I call him? I demanded. He's the one who overreacted. Rachel gave me a long look. Did he, though? If he heard you say he was your last resort? Whose side are you on? I snapped. Yours. Always, Rachel said quickly. I'm just saying, maybe try to see it from his perspective. I ignored her advice and went to bed angry. Monday morning, I woke up to a text from Nolan. We need to talk about next steps. Please let me know when you'll be home to discuss. Next steps? What was that supposed to mean? I went to work, distracted and irritable. Tucker noticed immediately, inviting me for coffee in the break room. You seem off today, he said, his eyes concerned. Everything okay? For a moment, I considered telling him everything. Imagine the sympathy in his eyes, the way he might take my hand, tell me I deserved better. But something held me back. Just having a rough morning, I said instead. Thanks for checking on me. The day dragged on endlessly. I kept checking my phone, half expecting Nolan to send a more apologetic message. Nothing. By late afternoon, I was starting to get nervous. What if he was serious? What would that mean for me? I left work early and stopped by our apartment. Nolan's car was in its usual spot. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the door. He was sitting at the kitchen table again, a stack of papers in front of him. When he looked up, his eyes were tired but calm. "Hi," I said, trying for casual. "I got your text." "Thanks for coming," he said formally, like I was a colleague, not his wife. "We need to talk about how we're going to handle the separation." "Separation?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Are you serious? Over one stupid comment?" "It wasn't one comment, Clara," Nolan said with surprising firmness. "It was a moment of honesty in a relationship built on lies. I've been thinking about it all weekend, and I realized that deep down I've always known you weren't really in love with me. I just didn't want to see it." "That's ridiculous," I protested, but the words sounded hollow even to me. "Is it?" he asked simply. "Can you honestly tell me that you love me? That you don't resent me? That you haven't thought about what life would be like with someone else?" I opened my mouth, ready to lie again, but something in his steady gaze stopped me. He already knew the truth. What was the point? "Fine," I said instead, crossing my arms. "So things aren't perfect, no marriages. That doesn't mean we throw everything away." "I'm not throwing anything away," Nolan repeated, echoing his words from before. "I'm accepting what's already gone." He slid one of the papers toward me, a separation agreement already filled out. "I think we should handle this as amicably as possible," he said. "I've outlined a fair division of assets based on our prenup." The prenup. The one I had signed without much thought because I'd been so focused on the wedding. The one that protected Nolan's savings, his apartment, his car. "Wait," I said, feeling the ground shift beneath me. "You can't be serious. Where am I supposed to go? What about our life together?" "You're welcome to stay here until you find a place," Nolan said, his tone still infuriatingly reasonable. "I can move to the guest room. As for our life together?" He paused. "I think we both know that was more of an arrangement than a marriage." Something inside me broke. All the fear, all the uncertainty about my future crystallized into pure rage. "You think you can just decide this on your own?" I shouted. "You think you can just throw me away like I'm nothing?" "I'm not throwing you away, Clara," Nolan said, still calm. "I'm setting us both free." "Free?" I laughed bitterly. "You think I want to be free?" I spat, the words escaping before I could stop them. "You think anyone else is going to take care of me the way you do?" As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd made a profound mistake. Nolan's expression hardened. "That's the problem, isn't it?" he said quietly. "You never wanted a husband. You wanted a caretaker. That's not what I meant." I backpedaled quickly. "I just meant—" "I know exactly what you meant," Nolan cut me off, "and I'm done being used." I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. Where was the man who would do anything to make me happy, who laughed at my jokes and forgave my moods and paid for everything without complaint? "You're making a huge mistake," I said, grabbing my purse. "When you realize that, don't expect me to come running back." "I won't," Nolan said simply. I stormed out again, slamming the door even harder than before. In my car, I screamed at the steering wheel, hitting it until my palms stung. This couldn't be happening. Not to me, not now. I drove aimlessly for hours, replaying everything in my mind. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Who did Nolan think he was? I was the best thing that ever happened to him. Without me, he was just another boring guy with a decent job. He should be grateful I chose him. Eventually, I ended up back at Rachel's. She opened the door in pajamas, looking surprised to see me. "How did it go?" she asked cautiously. "He wants a divorce," I said, pushing past her into the apartment. Can you believe that? Over one stupid phone call. Wait, what exactly did he say? I collapsed on her couch, tears flowing again. He said he knows I don't really love him, that our marriage was just an arrangement. He already had separation papers ready. "Oh, Clara," Rachel sighed, sitting beside me. "I'm so sorry. He's going to regret this," I sniffled. "He'll never find anyone as good as me." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Clara, I need to show you something." She picked up her tablet from the coffee table and tapped the screen a few times before handing it to me. It was open to some website I didn't recognize, a page full of comments. At the top was a post titled, "I overheard my wife telling her friend not to settle like she did, that I was her last resort." My blood ran cold as I skimmed the post. It was our story, every detail, exactly as it had happened, from Nolan's perspective. He'd written about coming home early, hearing my phone call, our confrontation, everything. The post had thousands of upvotes and hundreds of comments, almost all of them supportive of Nolan and condemning of me. "Anonymous husband 34, it read. I'd been taking care of everything, the apartment, her car, all our expenses. I thought we were building a life together, but apparently I was just a backup plan. I looked up at Rachel in shock. Did you know about this? She nodded slowly. It went viral yesterday. Jasmine sent it to me because, well, the story sounded familiar. Familiar? I repeated, my voice rising. He's airing our dirty laundry online for everyone to see, and you're on his side? I'm not on anyone's side, Rachel said carefully. But Clara, the things you said about Nolan, about settling for him, they weren't very kind. It was a private conversation, I protested. Everyone vents about their spouse sometimes. This wasn't just venting, Rachel said, taking the tablet back and scrolling through the comments. You said he was your last resort, that you could have done better. How would you feel if you heard him say that about you? I stared at her, betrayal burning in my chest. I can't believe you right now. You're supposed to be my best friend. I am your best friend, Rachel said firmly, which is why I'm being honest with you. What you said hurt Nolan deeply, and now a lot of people know about it. This isn't just going to blow over. As if to confirm her words, my phone buzzed with a text from another friend. OMG, Clara, have you seen this Reddit post? Is this about you and Nolan? Then another, girl, check your Facebook messages ASAP. And another, hey, just checking if you're okay. Saw something online that seemed like it might be about you guys. My stomach dropped as I realized what was happening. Somehow people were connecting Nolan's anonymous post to us. Our story was spreading. I was being exposed. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Friends stopped returning my calls. Colleagues avoided me at work. Even Tucker started finding excuses not to have lunch with me. I tried damage control, telling anyone who would listen that Nolan had misunderstood, that he was twisting things to make himself the victim. But the story had already spread too far. Meanwhile, Nolan seemed to be thriving. According to mutual friends, the few who still spoke to me, he'd moved into a nice new apartment, was excelling at his job with the new promotion, and had even started going to the gym regularly. He'd changed his relationship status on Facebook to single and posted a photo of himself hiking with friends, looking happier than I'd seen him in years. When I finally returned to our old apartment to collect my things after multiple legal notices, I found most of my stuff packed in boxes in the living room. Everything I'd bought with my own money, which I realized with growing horror, wasn't much. The furniture, the electronics, even most of the kitchenware had been purchased by Nolan. The prenup I'd signed so carelessly before our wedding meant I had no claim to the apartment, to his savings, or to any of our joint assets beyond my personal belongings. I'd assumed we'd be together forever, so what did it matter whose name was on the deed? I'd been so focused on what Nolan could give me that I never bothered building anything of my own. 3 months after our separation, I was laid off from my job. Budget cuts, they said, but I couldn't help wondering if my increasingly distracted performance or the office gossip about my personal life had played a role. With no savings of my own and no spousal support thanks to that prenup, I had no choice but to move back in with my parents at 32. 6 months after that, I saw an Instagram post that Rachel was having a housewarming party. In one of the photos, I spotted Nolan chatting with a pretty brunette I didn't recognize. They weren't touching, but something in the way they looked at each other made my chest tighten. In another photo, they were laughing together, her hand on his arm. I wasn't invited to the party. The year after our separation, the divorce finalized with barely a whimper. I signed the papers in my lawyer's office alone, while Nolan was apparently on vacation in Europe, according to his social media. By then, I was working at a job that paid half what my old one did, living in a tiny apartment I could barely afford, and watching from the digital sidelines as my ex-husband built a new life without me. The final blow came when Nolan changed his relationship status to in a relationship with the brunette from Rachel's party. Olivia, according to her profile, she was a kindergarten teacher who volunteered at an animal shelter and ran marathons for charity. Her posts were full of genuine smiles and thoughtful comments, not carefully staged photos or cryptic status updates like mine. One night, after too much wine and self-pity, I messaged him, "Are you happy now? Was throwing everything away worth it?" His response came the next morning. "I didn't throw anything away, Clara. I finally recognized my own worth. I hope someday you find yours too." I stared at those words for a long time, something bitter and painful rising in my throat. He was right. There had never been anything real to throw away. Just a man who loved me more than I deserved, and a woman who was too blind to see what she had until it was gone. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Nolan hadn't come home early that day. If he hadn't overheard my true feelings, would we still be together? Him blissfully ignorant and me quietly resentful? Would I eventually have acted on my attraction to Tucker or someone like him? Would I have spent my entire life settling without realizing what I was missing? I don't have those answers. And I'm left with the stark reality that the choices I made and the words I spoke have led me to this lonely place. This truly sounds like a painful and humbling realization. It seems you've come to a difficult understanding about the choices you made and their profound impact on your life. The irony of your advice to your friend, juxtaposed with your own outcome, is a harsh lesson to bear. It takes significant courage to confront such a truth about oneself. It appears you're grappling with the consequences of your past actions and the loss of what you once had. Moving forward, acknowledge